Welcome to Learning for Love, Lessons for Life. You are going to really enjoy this episode. I am Lisa Jaworski, and today we are going to be talking about finding energy from within. This is a topic that can go in so many different directions, and today I'm really thrilled to have two special guests with me who I know are going to speak to this topic the way it should be spoken about. So I'm going to have Ron Hicks join us later on the show. And to start us off, I have Lynn Clarkin. Lynn Clarkin, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And I'm looking forward just to hearing more about your journey from yours and my conversation so far. You sound like you can speak to this quite effectively based on your experiences that you've had in the past. I wonder if you would just kind of share a little bit about your journey up to this point, and also keeping in mind our larger subject being the sandwich generation, or how we take care of ourselves by overcoming some of those challenges in life as well.
Oh, well, thank you for having me today, Lisa. 30 years ago, I was diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia, and I had two small children who were sick with severe asthma, and that was part of the reason I got sick. And within a couple of years after that, my son was also diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. So it was really a challenge just to get going through every single day.
Yeah.
But it was really energy work that has kept me going over the years. It wasn't until it was like 5 years in that I discovered a Tai Chi class for people with chronic fatigue syndrome. And so that was my insight, or my road into this journey of energy work. I'd also done a bit of therapeutic touch treatment before that. My sister-in-law had introduced me to a therapeutic touch treatment. And that was really, I found it really did give relief. And so I would have treatments every week and stuff. And but over the years, it was always just a challenge just to raise my children and keep going. And I did start doing some volunteer work early after I had to retire. I was a special ed teacher, which was also very stressful before I got sick. And but then I was able to, when I had to retire from teaching, I started volunteering at Banting House, which gave me a chance to keep teaching, but to do it on my level, like twice a week, 2 hours a week kind of thing. But then I found about 7 years ago, I still really wasn't any better. I was on like 15 different medications, and and I would do my Tai Chi class every week when I could go, because I frequently get sick. I have a lot of infections and stuff like that. So I decided that one thing I hadn't tried was doing more Tai Chi. And so I figured the only way to do that was to force myself to do it, was to start teaching. So I took over the Tai Chi for Health Challenges class because my teacher had retired. And then the following year, I decided to give up sugar, which made a huge difference in my diet. It gave me more energy. It cleared up my asthma, less pain and all sorts of things. And so then I was able to start learning more things. And I started to learn Tai Chi for arthritis, which is a program that's set up by a medical doctor from Australia, Dr. Paul Lamb. And it's a really structured program, and it's been set up by medical professionals and Tai Chi experts and stuff. So I really started to feel the energy and to really advance, and I started to be able to take more classes, teach more classes. So now I'm doing, I do 4 or 5 classes a week. And I also have a great naturopath too, who gives me acupuncture treatments, another form of energy work as well. So whenever I have, migraine or infection or something, she'll just put me in for an acupuncture treatment and stuff. So it's just been, and it's great being able to share that about the energy work and stuff. And I'm seeing people improving because of the work we're doing. So
I love that, Lynn. I love the fact that you mentioned how, this has been, it sounds like a lifelong journey, trying to figure out what helps you to stay healthy and be the best you can be. And I also love the fact that you're talking about continuing with the skills that you already have, like the fact that you have a background in being a teacher, and now you found other ways to teach going forward, but in ways that are meaningful to you and make sense to you. I think that's really important for people too to remember, is to really always tap into your natural and learned skills and abilities.
Exactly. Once you're a teacher, you're always a teacher.
I think that's so true. And you also, I remember you mentioning to me, and I'm hoping that you could share a little bit about this, is your own experience with first seeking help medically and looking at, some medical treatments. And in all fairness, sometimes there's a place for that. But can you tell us a little bit about your journey in that regard?
Yeah, I firmly believe that the medical science could heal me. And, and I was out there doing all the research and going to all the doctors and traveling all over the place to get treatments. And as I said, I tried everything. I was on at least 5, 6 different antidepressants. I was on morphine for years, then, Tylenol with codeine, and just everything, calcium channel blockers and stuff. And the thing is that all of them have side effects.
Right.
So it turned out that you're constantly dealing with the side effects, and then they give you another medication to deal with the side effects, and like I ended up developing high blood pressure, so I needed 2 different blood pressure medications and stuff like that.
Okay.
Mind you, so once I started change the diet and started focusing more just on doing the energy work, I was able to actually wean off all my medications. The only thing I'm on now is prescription CBD oil and THC oil, which I find excellent for controlling the pain and for anxiety and nausea and stuff. But I use a lot of natural supplements and homeopathic remedies and stuff that I get from my.
Okay, and you find that helpful?
Yeah.
Okay.
But to get those medications, it was just a constant cycle of, I think, more medical crisis I had. Most of them were caused by medication.
Wow. And the other part is that you're mentioning that by teaching more, that I think kind of builds a discipline in you to continue, is what you're saying. In order for you to keep going, by teaching it doesn't give you a way out necessarily. So I like that. I can relate to that, because that's why I'm tapping into the two of you today and the other guests that I've had on the show, is because, by constantly learning and, drawing on other people's experiences, I think we can learn and grow. So the fact that you've built that in going forward for you on your journey is to teach others. That way you're doing it as well. I think that's a good piece of advice too, maybe indirectly, that you've shared.
Oh, exactly. And I have to do it. If I'm not doing my classes and stuff, I get worse. And so that's why when COVID started, it was great to embrace Zoom and start doing Zoom classes. And then now I'm doing outdoor classes and stuff. So I'm still doing 4 classes a week, even though all this has been going on, because I need to do it.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a great piece of advice for sure. Well, thank you so much. And I'm really looking forward to having you back on with Ron at the end of the show, so we can kind of share some ideas before we end. So everybody has some ideas on how to move forward with, really doing some soul searching and finding within what helps them recover. Because it could be medicine, but there might be other options as well that might be helpful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Carrie.
That Reiki was the big part, and Ron is my Reiki master. So
there's the connection.
My Tai Chi teacher, and then when I broke my arm, I knew about his work in Reiki, so I turned to him. So he's gotten me through a lot of crises like that too.
I love that. It's nice to have a connection, and thank you for sharing that. Mm-hmm. So that's a perfect segue for me to introduce Ron Hicks next, who's going to share a little bit about himself. Ron, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Lisa, and I appreciate being on here. And I must say, before I start too, that Terry Lynn is a poster child. She's come through a lot. I've known what she's come through. And what she was saying says it all, really. Yeah. We have the capacity to heal ourselves. I've always believed that. And although I deviate periodically, you lose faith in things. My story, well, basically, I've always believed in body mind medicine, always since the 60s. I was a 60s guy. And, but I went through conventional science. So I have a science degree in anatomy. Tried to get into medicine, almost did, but I was too old when I applied. So I ended up working in pathology for 24 years. Great career in a lot of ways, but different for me though. But then I ended up having an occupational health and safety issue with the hospital, and my whole world fell apart. I mean, everything just went right downhill. I fought it for a year, and then I finally decided I'm going to get out of here. I was basically at the end of my career. I basically tried Reiki because I was on antidepressants, which were making me really squirrely. And then I finally went to a Reiki therapist, and I had no idea what it was. I basically knew what it was, but she was going to do a half-hour free and a half-hour charge, and then she said, "Oh my goodness, you're so low. I'm going to do the whole hour free," and that's the name of the game. So that was my introduction, and then she was so good and just basically gave me a little bit of hope that I wasn't going down the tubes.
Right.
So then I asked her if she taught, and she didn't, and she recommended somebody who did teach. So I did 3 levels right away, plus therapeutic touch. Went to Buddhist meditations once a week for 4 years with a Buddhist from Hamilton. So everything started growing from there. And it was what I wanted to do. And then I got into Tai Chi, and then I did Qigong. Qigong's been a major part of my life. I do it every morning when I get up. So subsequent to my leaving my work, shortly afterwards, I found out I had glaucoma. So that was my first medical thing.
Okay.
And I thought, okay, this is just wonderful. I've got glaucoma. 2008, I was diagnosed as having diabetes type 2, even though I'd taken off a lot of weight. So I remember the day the doctor said to me, "Well, you have to be on medication." I said, "No, I'm going to do this myself." So that was 2008. This is 2020. I still am not on medication.
Wow.
So through
You're able to control it just by choices that you've made. And
yep, eating different things. I've made choices in my diet. I do the Qigong, Tai Chi, Reiki. I walk 2 hours a day, So I did do it, and I haven't been on medication. And my blood sugars are absolutely, well, almost normal. They're pre-diabetic still. So I still believe in certain things in conventional medicine. Obviously, if somebody's had an accident, they need to be taken to surgery. If you have something wrong that way, you have to have it done. But as in China, if you do those type of things, you get better when you do Qigong, Tai Chi, and their medical literature is just full of that type of stories. So I think people have to believe in themselves a little bit more, and I think that's what's wrong in our society. People believe something's happening, so I have to change. How do I change? I go to a doctor. What does a doctor do? Who knows? But you have to believe that you can do a lot of it yourself. And Terry's a pure example of that. I have several students that are just amazing in what they've done because they've done the work, right? They don't just sit back and accept it. So,
yeah. I'm looking forward to bringing you both back, and I will in a minute. I have another question for you first.
Yeah.
I have lots of questions in my head, so I want to just focus in for a minute and ask for anybody who's not sure about what exactly, you've mentioned a few different types of energy work. How would you describe energy work? Because you also commented to me when we spoke that you can even feel energy through virtual situations. So that intrigued me as well.
And it's funny because I'm not a physics type of person, but I love quantum physics and the whole thing about we're all surrounded by energy, all of us. There's no such thing as space. There's energy within space. You can manipulate that by doing certain things. And A lot of it is meditative. You have to be very meditative sometimes. Even in Reiki, some people see things in Reiki. I don't. I don't see anything. I close my eyes. I might as well go to sleep because it's all dark. But I can feel and I can sense, and I can sense stories. So if I'm with a client, I can feel the story. And I'm a real storyteller anyway, as Terry knows. Get me going, and I'm out there. But energy is such a it's such a normal thing. Every one of our cells in our bodies are filled with energy. They're part of us. So why shouldn't we be able to control that to a certain point? And to some people, that sounds really woo-woo and out there, but it's very basic. It's very basic knowledge. In Tai Chi or Qigong, they teach you how to move your energy through your meridians, and it works. And they do different things like sound therapy. So even I was telling Terry yesterday, if people are having, let's say, palpitations in their heart, one of the simplest things they can do is just hum. So just going or om, and that vibrates the vagus nerve, which calms your system down. So energy is all around us. We're just pure energy bodies. Yeah. We're not really solid bodies. We're energy bodies. Well, one quick thing I'll say too is that, like, people talk about touch therapy.
Right.
So Reiki is touch therapy. Even therapeutic touch is touch sometimes. If you even put your hand on your own heart, let's say you're upset and you're nervous about something, and you breathe deeply and you just focus. And what happens physiologically is you're producing oxytocin, the hormone. As soon as you do that, or if you pat yourself, so you think about when you're nervous or you're uptight and you go,
yeah,
you're actually giving yourself a dose of oxytocin.
Oh, wow.
Which is calming you down. Or if you have a baby and you're patting the baby's back, same thing.
Oh, interesting.
That's a physiologic correlate to energy therapy. So it all blends in together. So I basically have a medical background, but I also have the alternative medical background.
Right.
And there's a lot of blending going on there. Yeah.
Which is why you're here. You know, you're a wealth of knowledge and you have so much to share. So thank you very, very much.
And I've got so much more to learn in my life.
Don't we all? And I think that's part of it, right? Is the fact that when I bring Terry back, I'm sure she'll share a little bit about how it feels now compared to, I remember what she was saying about 20 years ago. So I think that's really what I'm getting at, and what I really want people to keep in mind is that even though we get stuck in certain situations in life or feel like we're challenged or, you know, stressed, that we're always moving forward, and those challenges build our resilience and help us to grow and keep learning. Yeah, thank you, Ron.
You're welcome.
So this, I think, is the perfect time to bring Ron and Terry back together for us to have kind of a meeting of the minds to figure out, you know, where do we go with all of this? And I think the first thing I would like to ask both of you is, what did retirement look like for you? Is it what you expected? And where are you now compared to when you retired? So Terry Lynn, can I start with you?
Well, yeah, because I had to was forced to retire when I was like so I guess I was like 50 years old or so.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was quite young that I had to force to retire.
Right.
And, but as I said, it's just been since I've been started to teach the Tai Chi and stuff. Now, of course, I'm so much better. Like my health is better than it's been in 20 years. Wow. And COVID has actually been an advantage to me because, as I said, I'm very susceptible to infections, and I actually I had a respiratory infection in March that may have been COVID, but my test results were indeterminate. But since then, I haven't had any infections, and that because of everybody wearing masks and washing and everything like that. And it's the first time that I've gone this long without an infection. So I'm actually it's allowing my body to heal, because before it was always a vicious cycle. Every time I got an infection, it would make the yeast worse. All the symptoms would get worse. And then that would make the make my immune system weaker, and then I would get another infection and stuff like that. So, so that's been a good thing. But as I said, it's mainly having the intention every day and the practice every single day. And I do my Tai Chi 2 or 3 times, 4 times a day, 2 or 3, 5, 10 minutes at a time, because for me, I can't do long periods of time. So that's how I just keep going that way.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think there's some good points in there for people to remember. Ron, if I was to ask you the same thing, what would you say compared to when you retired? What did that look like, and what does it look like now?
Oh, well, retirement for about 2 years was awful because I just went into a zone. I didn't know what my purpose was anymore.
Right.
I used to walk in Springbank Park for 4 hours in the hot weather and just to walk around. Then I'd go for coffee, and then I'd walk around. Then I go. And being around the house was just not good because I was used to being in a very active lab.
Yeah.
Something that my first Reiki teacher said to me after I took my buyout and I was feeling so traumatized. She and I were talking one time, and she said to me, she just looked at me and she said, "Okay, stop it." And I said, "What do you mean, stop it?" And she said, "You've been given a gift." She said, "Did you want to keep on the way you were?" And I said, "No." She said, "You've got a gift, now use it." I'll never forget that. And so I joined a choir because I had been a singer for many years. Retirement became better. I never liked the word retirement because people say, "Did you retire?" I say, "No, I quit." I wanted to make that really deadly clear. But you have to reconstruct yourself. And that's the only way you can do it. You have to recreate who you are. And often, I think Terry realizes this too, you find that, what I was before wasn't really who I am anyway. This is much more to what I want to do. And it's partly retirement because you don't have to have the same responsibilities. But I know guys my age who sit and drink coffee and read the paper and then drink coffee and then read the paper and then they have a nap, then they read the paper. I mean, that just wasn't for me. That made me feel like screaming because I had a fairly active background.
And you hear about people when people retire. I think everybody before retirement thinks, "Oh, it's going to be so great." You talk about things like, "I'm going to golf, I'm going to travel south." But what I'm learning more than ever from my experiences working with people your ages is the fact that retiring never really goes as planned. Sometimes, but more often than not, that's not necessarily the story. So I think what I find really important that I'm hoping that people get from this is that just because it doesn't go the way you plan doesn't mean it can't be even better than what you planned.
Yes.
Right? That it's just reframing what we pictured and going forward by not having expectations. I think expectations might get in the way of how we feel.
Oh, big time. And I think one of the big things that I find with anybody that I work with, and I taught Tai Chi in chair to seniors at senior places for, oh my goodness, almost 10 years. I stopped last year only because it was becoming a job.
Right.
It was becoming routine, and I just needed some time off. But a lot of the people all they had to look forward to was that exercise class or maybe dinner, and that was it for the whole day. And it really made me sad for them that there's so much capability there. There's so many things that people could do still, but weren't able to do it. So, but I think a lot of people, I find too, don't like themselves. I think that's one thing that's very important. There's a woman named Dr. Kristen Neff in the States, Neff, and she wrote a book about self-compassion. And that is one of the biggest things I can recommend to people. If you hate yourself, if you think you look ugly, if you think you can't do anything, what kind of life are you going to have?
Yeah. Right? We've got to tell ourselves positive messages and believe it, right?
Yep.
Actually love yourself. Yeah. Terry, any last thoughts for the people out there who, might relate to your story and sharing what you have about, experiences with pain and your mood?
Yeah. Well, for one thing, to take Tai Chi or Qigong classes. And as I said, I'm still doing them on Zoom and outside. And so if you're interested, my information is on the Phoenix Tai Chi website on the left-hand side of the page. So you can contact me and I'll even do private classes. Also, I belong to the Fibromyalgia London group, and they've been doing amazing things since COVID started. They went on Zoom right away. So they are offering free Tai Chi. Well, I did free classes for them for 3 months, and now they have another teacher. They have free yoga classes, free knitting classes, sharing circles, which I'm a coordinator for, chat rooms, game time, everything. So it's just amazing. So if you've got fibromyalgia, check out the Fibromyalgia London group. And you were saying about books. This is sort of my Bible. It's called Emotional Wisdom, Daily Skills for Transforming Anger, Depression, and Fear by Mantak Chia.
Okay.
And Qigong Healing Sounds. And like Ron was saying about being kind to yourself, your liver, if you're not kind to yourself, that's where we get the pain and stuff is sick in our liver. So we want to get rid of the negative anger and frustration in our liver, and then we bring in the positive emotions of kindness, and being kind to yourself is really super. So that's something I do these every single day.
That brings me to a segue too with the book she's showing. Mantak Chia, I've studied him for years. One of the nicest meditations that he teaches, and I've taught many times, is smiling meditation.
Yeah.
You just close your eyes, and first of all, you smile at your brain. I'm talking like, you smile at your brain, then you smile down to your left lung. You say, "Hi, left lung, thank you for breathing for me all day." And when I've taught that, I'll have a circle of maybe 10, 15 people in front of me, and the looks on their faces are kind of like, "Oh, and now we're going to go to the right lung," and they're, And by the time you go through your whole body, that's a self-love.
That's awesome. Ron, I'm gonna stop us there only for time's sake, but I'm hoping that if people wanted to get in touch with either of you, that maybe that's an opportunity. Thank you both for sharing what you have.
Thank you.
And I'm hoping that this is helpful to the people watching. It has been for me, even just understanding more about not just your journeys, but the energy and how we have that power within us to make some of these harder decisions on how to move forward. So thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. We really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Oh, I'm glad. So everybody, I hope you got just as much as I did out of this episode, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you to Ron and Terry, and we'll see you next time.